There is just something about December that invites us to sit still for a minute, to look at our life, our business, and ask the question we often forget to ask. What do I actually want to create next? Not what you should want, not what everyone else is chasing, but what do you actually want? Welcome to the Solo Grind, your weekly coffee break with just you and me and a conversation about building a business solo without losing yourself in the process. Grab your cup of coffee, pull up your coziest blanket, and let's talk about the dreams worth bringing into the new year. Welcome to December, my friends. I am so excited for today's episode, and because I am afraid I may forget, I am going to start off with a quick little introduction. I am Teresa Schloop, a brand strategist and web designer who provides branding essentials and websites to solo small business owners. You can find out more about me and my services at my website, caffeinecreative.io. And if it sounds like something that you are looking for, book a free consultation and let's chat. And thank you so much for joining me here today. Whether this is your first time or you've been here before, welcome. I love connecting with you all through this podcast. And I really love this time of year. Not for the holidays and the extra time with family, although that is a pretty spectacular way to spend my time. But I love this time of year because this is when I cozy up with my heated blanket, a fabulous cup of coffee, and dream. I spend time going through my miracle box and thinking about what I want to create next. Now, if you're unfamiliar with a miracle box, it's simply a little box where I keep the things I want to create in my life written out on tiny little pieces of paper. I share more about this in one of my very first episodes of this podcast, Create Your Vision and Make It Happen. And I will be sure to include a link to that in the show notes in case you're interested in exploring that more. Now, back to snuggling up with my miracle box. I am always so amazed at how many of the little dreams I added last year became true for me as I read them out. And it always gets me imagining of what I can create next. This year, I decided to ask a few deeper questions before I start filling my miracle box for next year. And because I really loved these questions, along with the clarity that they have given me, I thought I would share them all with you. I also wanted to spend a few minutes just sharing a bit about what or how we're going to be closing out 2025 here on the Solo Grind. As this week is all about gaining clarity on what it is that we want to create, build, or have in our lives, it felt necessary to focus on how to say no to what we don't want. So, next week, two of my absolute favorite people will be joining us here on the Solo Grind, starting off on our regular Tuesday episode, where Leslie Myrick, the associate coach with the Profit Insiders Academy, and I will be chatting about using no as a growth strategy. And then I am going to be following up that episode with a bonus episode on Friday, December 12th, where Emily Aborn will be talking about the cost of saying yes and how to say no with ease and kindness. After we learn how to say no to what we don't want, we are going to dive into discovering our strengths and how to use those strengths to build exactly what we are dreaming of in the new year. And if all goes well this month, I will be finishing up the year sharing all the new amazing things I have been creating behind the scenes in my own business that will be my New Year gift to each and every one of you. So wish me luck on that, and let's go ahead and start getting clear on what it is that we want to create. So, as I shared just a moment ago, this is the time of year that I dream about what it is I want to create in the new year. And this year, I decided to go deep. A few of these questions that I am exploring are ones that come up every single year, and a few of them are brand new. Quite a few come from books that I've read, which I will share the links to in my show notes, and a couple are all my own. If you'd like to spend a little more time focused on exploring these questions for yourself, I will be sure to include them in the show notes and even my insights into them in the detailed show notes on my website. So be sure to check that out when you have a chance. Now, I wanted to start off with a question that felt like the easiest one to answer, at least for me, and that is this: what feels light and what feels heavy? Now, this question comes from The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte, and it's a question that I actually do explore every single year. I discovered this book years ago when I attended a workshop centered on the book. If you aren't familiar with the Desire Map, let me give you a little insight into the process behind the book. It is all about shifting your focus from achieving external goals to how you want to feel in your everyday life. When you know how you want to feel, it becomes that much easier to create goals that will help you achieve those core desired feelings and actually create the life that you're dreaming of and not just check off some boxes of accomplishments. This was a really, really big shift for me in my business. I was still in the early stages of figuring out what I wanted my business to look like, and it was very much focused on metrics and those check boxes of accomplishments and tangible goals. At that time, I was so caught up in trying to be a good little business owner that I never really stopped to think about how I wanted to feel in my business. I just knew I had to do, create, build, and succeed. By taking a step back and simply asking myself, what feels light in my life right now and what feels heavy? It suddenly became clear that there were aspects of my business that I did not love or even like, and many of these weren't even necessary. These were the things that felt really heavy to me. By heavy, I mean overwhelming, daunting, even intimidating at times. They weren't things that were actually growing my business, making me money, or helping me be better at what I do. They were simply shoulds that I thought I had to do in order to have a business. Now, one of these heavy things at that time was the networking that I was doing. And please don't get me wrong. I believe that networking is one of the most powerful ways to expand your business, especially if your clientele are local to you. My clients, however, are nationwide, and the type of networking I was doing was more about the quick exchange of business cards and people asking me for let me pick your brain sessions where they wanted to know all of my wisdom and not exchange anything in return. Living in the middle of nowhere, these events and meetings were at least 3 hours out of my day with travel time, and they kept me from doing things that were actually growing my business. But looking at my business, there were also quite a few things that felt incredibly light to me as well. These were the things that felt easy and effortless, that I loved doing and often wish I had more of. At the time, it was blogging and doing twice weekly Facebook Live videos. I loved doing both of these. And when I wasn't spending hours in the car driving to some event that drained my energy, I had a lot more time to do these things that were actually connecting me with my dream clients and building my business. This question helped me take a look at where I was spending my time and redirect it to what was working. And again, it's a question that I still reflect on every single year, and not just at the start of a year, but anytime things start to feel heavy in my life or business. Things start to feel daunting, overwhelming, or simply just not fun. I really do believe that work should be fun and never feel forced. Which brings me to the next question that I am exploring this year, and that is, where in my life have I been trying to force something that wasn't meant for me? I really love this question because as a solo business owner, there is a lot I have tried to force into my life. And this question comes from the book Outrageous Openness by Tosha Silver. I'll be honest, I don't think I have read this book, but I have read her book, Change Me Prayers, which I absolutely loved. And when I came upon this question in my research for today's episode, it really intrigued me. There are the things that I believe I should want or do or have, and I have spent countless hours trying to force those things to fit into my life. Just this past year, I took on a project that I honestly believed was growth and a natural next step for my business. It was creative and centered on relationship marketing, which is something that I love doing. And the client was an absolute dream client. I love working with this client. And as a cherry on top of the cake, the money was pretty good, and I believed that it gave me the potential to bring in even more lucrative opportunities. Everything about this project looked perfect on paper, but in my heart and soul, I knew it wasn't right. Despite my inner voice telling me that this is not the direction I wanted to be going, I really did give this project my all, trying to make it fit into my business, trying to make it fit for the client that I loved working with, until finally I had to admit that this just wasn't where I wanted to be spending my time. When things aren't a fit, it's so okay to let them go, and that is what I did. I let this project and all of the potential opportunities from it go and instantly felt a weight lift off my shoulder. I have no idea what will fill the newfound space in my calendar, but I know this was the right step and I am excited to see what comes next. All right. Now I want to shift focus away from what it is that we don't want and look more at what we do want to create. And this next question is the perfect segue for doing that. Here it is. What, if anything, makes me forget to check my phone? Now, this question comes from the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I read years ago. Before we answer that question, though, I actually want to flip the script on this one and ask, what makes me want to check my phone? I spent some time looking at the things I am doing in my life and business, especially the things that I love to procrastinate. These are the things that I schedule into my calendar with the best of intentions, and yet will pick up my phone and play a game or scroll through my junk mail account just to avoid doing them. Knowing I will find just about every reason possible to avoid these things, I had to ask, do I really need to be doing these things? Can I pass them on to someone else or simply let go of them altogether? I've actually let go of quite a few things in recent months that I thought I had to have in my business. And again, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders as soon as I made those decisions. And those things that make me forget to check my phone, well, that takes us to the next question that I did a little journaling on. What do I love doing that makes my corner of the world a better place? I personally believe that we all do something that makes our corner of the world a better place. So many of us are conditioned to diminish what it is that we do, believing that it isn't a big deal or all that important, and we need to stop doing this. I remember a few years back at a work event for my husband, one of the wives that I met did just this. She had her own business cleaning houses in the area and immediately put herself down because she didn't have a quote unquote real job. But that wasn't at all what I saw. First of all, anyone who can manage a thriving business of any kind is pretty smart, in my opinion, and her business was definitely thriving. And secondly, this was a woman who knew that she wanted to be available to her kids as they were growing up. Starting her own cleaning business allowed her to do this while also contributing to the financial status of the family. That should never be diminished. That, in my opinion, is an incredibly intelligent, empowered woman who created life on her own terms. We all do things that make our corner of the world a better place. It doesn't matter if you are a dog groomer, an interior designer, or cleaning houses so you can structure your day around your kids' schedule. What you are doing brings light into someone else's day, and that matters. So rather than trying to be realistic, practical, or unnecessarily humble, I want you to ask, what do you love doing that makes your corner of the world a better place? For me, I love creating brand essentials and websites for my clients. I can literally spend hours lost in doing this and still feel recharged. To paraphrase a question I considered adding to this list while doing my research for this week's episode, this kind of work, the brand essentials, the web design, makes me forget to eat and poop. And this question comes to us courtesy of Mark Manson, the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving and You Know What. And I love this question because I actually truly can relate to it. When I'm working on a new website, time stops for me. I no longer need to eat or drink, and bathroom breaks feel like something for other people. I won't even realize the sun has gone down and my office will all of a sudden be dark. I have fabulous windows with great natural light, so you can see where this would be a problem in my world. It is these kinds of things that I want more of in my business and my life. It is the kind of work that if money were no object and I had everything that I needed, I absolutely would do for free. Which brings us to the next question. If money were no object and you could do anything that you wish, would you do what you were doing for free? A business coach of mine asked me this way back when I was still in my life coaching days, and I was shocked to hear me answer, no, I would not do this work for free. That is when I discovered that life coaching wasn't the right career path for me, and when I decided to start exploring other ways to make a living. Now, I am not saying you should give away your valuable time and expertise. I actually believe there's a beautiful exchange of energy when it comes to providing services for compensation. But I do want to encourage you to really think about this question, and not just in business, but in life in general. Like when my husband and I buy a lottery ticket, it's not something we do all that often, but when the jackpot is huge, we love buying a few tickets and dreaming about what our life would look like if we won. Years ago, we had all sorts of changes that we would make to our life. New home, new cars, new careers, no careers. But today, honestly, we wouldn't change all that much. If I were to win the jackpot tonight, I would still wake up tomorrow morning excited to connect with my clients, to dive into a new design project or create some gorgeous branding essentials. I would still be here recording this podcast to share with you each week and would still be writing my blog. That is how I know that I'm on the right path for my business and life in general. And this brings us to question number 6 that I am exploring this year. And that is, if everything I am doing right now disappeared tomorrow, what would I fight to keep? And this question comes to us from the book Essentialism by George McGowan. And I wanted to include it because it is honestly one of the best questions I have ever had to answer. This question is in a large part what shapes my life today and the reason that I would fight to keep just about everything that I have in my life. This hasn't always been the case, and I do remember a time in my life when there wasn't a whole lot I would miss if it disappeared. There were to-do tasks that filled my days while never actually filling my soul or even improving my quality of life. There was stuff that I had that I just kept moving from place to place, never really using it or needing it, but feeling like I had to hold on to it for some reason. There were jobs that would have felt like a blessing to lose if I didn't need the money. And there were people that I've learned I prefer to love at a distance. Facing this very real possibility 6 years ago of losing everything made me think about what I actually wanted to have in my life. Who did I want to spend my time with? And what did I want to be doing? Now, I know. All right, this brings us to the final question that I am exploring this year, and that is, how do I want to be remembered? This question, like the first one, what feels light and what feels heavy, is one I ask myself a lot. And it's not about worrying what other people think of me and fearing I may be judged for how I show up in the world. I already know that I am judged, and I'm okay with that. The people who judge me aren't my people. They have different goals, priorities, and focuses in life, and I love that they are over in their corner doing their thing. It is more about thinking about what I want the people who are my people to say and think about me. And it's centered on my core values and what is most important to me at this stage of my life and business. This question helps me decide how I show up for others in my life. It helps me determine what gets my time and energy and what I can say no to without feeling guilt. And this, my friends, brings us to the end of this week's conversation. I hope that I have given you a little spark of inspiration to start thinking about what it is that you truly want to create in the new year. And be sure to tune in next week where we will be turning our focus into how to use one of the most effective words in the English language, that two-letter word, no. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Grind. I hope today's questions gave you a little space to breathe, to think, and to imagine what you actually want to create in the year ahead. If this episode sparked something for you, even a tiny bit of clarity, I would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. It helps more solo business owners like you find conversations just like today's. And if you want to connect with me, you can always find me at caffeinecreative.io. The coffee is always on and the conversations are free.